The first time I saw her, I knew humans were going to be a problem. My name is Vornath, Senior Combat Instructor at the Galactic Military Academy on Station Helix 9, and in my 217 cycles of service, I have trained warriors from 463 different species. I have seen the Kralks, who can bend steel with their minds. I have witnessed the Thurians, whose exoskeleton can withstand plasma fire. I have even taught the Viridians, who literally breathe in vacuum. But humans? Humans were something else entirely. The Academy briefing did not prepare me for this. It said, "New species, recently contacted, requesting standard combat training protocols." Standard. That word should have been my first warning, because nothing about these creatures was ever going to be standard. She walked into my training hall on the first day of cycle instruction, and I remember thinking she looked pathetically fragile. Her name was Kira Valdez, and she stood barely 1.6 meters tall, weighing maybe 60 of their kilograms. Her skin was this odd brown color, her hair dark and pulled back in what I later learned they call a ponytail, and her eyes were the color of Earth's soil after rain. Surrounding her were my usual batch of recruits. There was Gorthak, a Manthar heavy assault specialist whose biceps were thicker than her entire torso. There was Priel, a Haxian female with 4 arms and reflexes that could catch bullets. And then there was Krovik. Krovik was the problem. He was a Drenthian, which meant he stood nearly 3 meters tall, had bone ridges running down his spine that could puncture armor, and possessed exactly the kind of ego that gets people killed in combat. Worse, his family had connections. His father commanded a battle cruiser. His uncle sat on the military council. Krovik had grown up believing the galaxy owed him respect, and he had never been told no in his entire existence. When he saw Kira, he laughed, not a small chuckle, a full booming laugh that echoed through the training hall's metallic walls. "This is what the humans send?" he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "This tiny thing? I have eaten meals larger than her." Kira did not react. She simply found her position in the formation and stood at attention, her face blank, her posture perfect. I appreciated that. It showed discipline. I should have known then, should have seen the warning signs, but I was too focused on starting the lesson. "Attention," I barked, my translator converting my words into galactic standard. "You are here to learn combat. Not sport fighting, not arena displays, combat. The kind that keeps you alive when everything goes wrong, when your weapons fail, when your shields drop, when it is just you and the enemy and the cold vacuum of space, watching to see who survives." I paced in front of them, my talons clicking on the floor. "Some of you think you already know how to fight. Some of you come from warrior cultures. Some of you have family legacies." I glanced at Krovik. "But here, none of that matters. Here, you prove yourself or you fail, and failure in combat means death." The recruits stood motionless. "Good. Today, we begin with basic grappling techniques. You will pair off. You will practice the holds I demonstrate. You will learn to control an opponent without killing them, because sometimes you need prisoners. Sometimes you need information. Sometimes killing is too merciful for what your enemy has done." I began assigning partners, Gorthak with another Manthar, Priel with a Vexian. I was about to pair Kira with a Glorn, a species roughly her size, when Krovik stepped forward. "Instructor Vornath," he said, his voice oozing false respect. "I volunteer to partner with the human. I believe she would benefit from training with a superior opponent." Superior opponent. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I considered refusing. Protocol said partners should be roughly matched in size and strength, at least initially. But another part of me, the part that had seen countless arrogant recruits get their egos shattered by reality, thought perhaps this would be educational. "Very well," I said. "Krovik and Kira, take position." They moved to the center of the training mat. The other recruits formed a circle around them, eager to watch. I could see the anticipation in their eyes. Everyone loves watching the mighty fall, and Krovik had made himself unpopular in the mere 3 days since training began. But nobody expected the human to win. That would have been absurd. Krovik grinned, showing all his teeth. In Drenthian culture, that is a threat display. He towered over Kira, his shadow swallowing her completely. "Do not worry, little human," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I will be gentle. I would not want to damage you before you have a chance to quit and return to your primitive little planet." Kira still did not react. Her face remained blank. But I noticed something. Her stance had shifted, just slightly. Her weight was on the balls of her feet now. Her hands, which had been relaxed at her sides, were now loose, but ready. She was not afraid. She was waiting. "Begin," I commanded. What happened next took approximately 4.3 seconds. Krovik reached for her, intending to grab her in a simple hold, probably planning to lift her off the ground and humiliate her. It was a stupid move, lazy and arrogant, the kind of thing someone does when they assume victory is guaranteed. Kira moved. She did not step back or try to evade. Instead, she stepped in, closing the distance between them to almost nothing. Her hand shot up, not to his throat or his face, but to his reaching arm. She grabbed his wrist with both hands, twisted her entire body, and suddenly Krovik's balance was gone. He tried to compensate. His size and strength should have let him simply power through whatever she was attempting. But she was not fighting his strength. She was redirecting it. She dropped her hips, turned and pulled, and suddenly Krovik's own momentum was working against him. His feet left the ground. For a moment, all 3 meters and 160 kilograms of Drenthian warrior hung in the air, completely helpless. Then Kira threw him. The impact shook the floor. Krovik hit the mat so hard that I heard the air explode from his lungs. Before he could even process what had happened, Kira had dropped to the ground beside him. Her knee landed on his chest, pinning him. One of her hands secured his arm at an angle that made my own joints ache in sympathy. The other hand was positioned at his throat, not quite touching, but the threat was clear. He could not move, could not breathe properly, could not do anything except stare up at the ceiling in complete shock. The entire hall was silent. Every single recruit stood frozen, their mouths open, their eyes wide. I walked over slowly, taking in the scene. Kira had not just won, she had dominated. There was no struggle, no back and forth, just instant, overwhelming victory. "Release him," I said quietly. Kira stood immediately, stepping back and returning to attention as if nothing had happened. Krovik rolled onto his side, gasping, his bone ridges scraping the mat as he struggled to his feet. His face had turned a deep purple color that I recognized as Drenthian embarrassment. "That," I said, addressing the entire class, "is technique. Size does not matter when you understand leverage. Strength is worthless if you cannot apply it." Krovik learned this lesson today, and he will remember it. But Krovik was not listening. He was staring at Kira with something dark and ugly growing in his eyes. Pride is dangerous. Wounded pride is deadly. I should have stopped it then, should have recognized that look, but I was too impressed by what I had just witnessed, too curious about what else this human might be capable of. "Again," Krovik growled. "That was luck. Again." Kira looked at me, waiting for permission. I nodded. They faced each other once more. This time, Krovik was not playing. His stance was proper, his movements cautious. He had learned respect, if nothing else. They circled each other. Krovik feinted left, then lunged right. Kira pivoted, deflected his grasp, and went for another throw. But Krovik was ready now. He countered, using his superior mass to prevent the same technique from working twice. Good, I thought. He is adapting. They grappled, a tangle of limbs and leverage, neither gaining clear advantage. Krovik tried to use his strength, tried to simply overpower her, but Kira was always moving, always redirecting, turning his power into wasted effort. Then Krovik made his mistake. He got frustrated. I saw it in the way his movements became more aggressive, more reckless. He abandoned technique in favor of brute force, swinging one massive arm in a strike that was not part of any grappling exercise. He struck first, in class. During a training exercise meant to teach control, his fist caught Kira in the shoulder, spinning her halfway around. It was not a full-power blow, but it was real, intended to hurt, intended to punish her for daring to embarrass him. The entire room held its breath. Kira steadied herself, turned back toward Krovik, and something changed in her expression. The blankness was gone, replaced by something cold and focused and absolutely terrifying. She threw him again, but this time it was different. Harder, faster, more violent. Krovik hit the mat with enough force to crack one of his bone ridges. Before he could even grunt in pain, Kira was on him. Not with a control hold this time, with something else, something final. Her forearm was across his throat, her legs had wrapped around his body, locking him in place. Her other hand had secured his arm again, but this time the angle was wrong, dangerous, the kind of position that breaks joints if pressure is applied. Krovik could not breathe, could not move, could not tap out because his hands were secured. His eyes went wide with panic, with the sudden realization that he was completely, utterly helpless, that this tiny human he had mocked and underestimated had him in a position where she could end his life and he could do absolutely nothing to stop her. "Enough," I shouted, rushing forward. Kira released him immediately, standing and stepping back. Her breathing was slightly elevated, but otherwise she looked completely calm. Krovik collapsed on the mat, coughing and gasping, one hand going to his throat, the other to his broken ridge. I looked at Kira. She met my gaze steadily, no apology in her eyes, no regret. She had responded to violence with overwhelming force, and she was not sorry. "Medical bay," I told Krovik. "Now." He stumbled away, his pride shattered more thoroughly than his bone ridge. I turned to the rest of the class. "Training is over for today. Dismissed." They filed out, whispering among themselves, casting glances at Kira. She waited until the hall was empty before approaching me. "Instructor Vornath," she said, "I apologize if I exceeded parameters." "He struck you first," I said. "Yes." "You responded appropriately for actual combat." "Yes." I studied her for a long moment. "Tell me, Kira Valdez of Earth, where did you learn to fight like that?" She was quiet for a moment, then said, "My planet has many fighting systems, many ways of turning an opponent's strength against them. We have had to develop them because we are not the biggest, not the strongest, not the most naturally equipped for combat, but we learn, we adapt, we survive." "Your planet must be a harsh place," I said. "Our planet is beautiful," she replied. "But yes, it has taught us to be hard." I nodded slowly. "I believe I underestimated your species." "Most do, sir. We are used to it." She left, and I stood alone in the training hall replaying what I had witnessed. 4.3 seconds. That was all it had taken for her to completely dismantle an opponent twice her size. I pulled up her file on my data tablet, reading through her background. Standard education, standard physical conditioning. Nothing exceptional listed in her records. But there was a note at the bottom, in the section for special skills. It said, "Proficient in multiple Earth martial arts systems. Competitive record available upon request." Competitive record. As if that explained what I had just seen. I requested the additional files. They arrived within minutes. And as I read through them, I felt something I had not experienced in decades. Concern. Kira Valdez had been competing in combat sports since she was 6 years old. She held black belts in 4 different systems. She had won planetary championships. She had a record of 217 competitive matches. She had lost 3 of them, and all 3 losses had come before she turned 15. Humans, I realized, did not just teach their warriors to fight. They started training them as children. They made combat into sport, into art, into culture. They had spent their entire existence as a species learning 10,000 different ways to hurt each other, and they had refined those methods over millennia. We had invited them into our galaxy, had offered them membership in our alliance, had welcomed them into our military academy. I began to suspect we had made a terrible mistake, not because humans were weak, but because they were anything but. The next day, Krovik did not return to training. Medical said his injuries would take weeks to heal. But 3 of his friends did show up, and the way they looked at Kira told me the incident was far from over. Wounded pride, as I said, is deadly. And humans, I was learning, were very good at making wounds that did not heal. The atmosphere in the training hall had shifted overnight. Word spread fast on Station Helix 9, and by morning cycle everyone knew what had happened. The human, the tiny, fragile newcomer from the primitive outer rim planet, had dismantled Krovik in seconds. Twice. I watched Kira enter the hall with her usual quiet confidence. She did not swagger, she did not posture, she simply walked to her position and waited, her expression neutral, her body language completely relaxed. But I noticed the other recruits giving her space now, respect, or perhaps fear. Sometimes they look identical. Krovik's 3 friends were already waiting. Talrex, Borand, and Mace, all Drenthian, all loyal to their humiliated companion, all radiating hostility. This was going to be interesting. Today, I announced, clicking my talons for attention, we focus on multiple opponent scenarios. In real combat, you will rarely face a single enemy. You must learn to maintain awareness, manage threats, and survive when outnumbered. I began explaining the exercise parameters. Recruits would rotate through scenarios, starting with 2 against 1, then progressing to 3 against 1, defensive positions only. The goal was escape and evasion, not victory. Kira Valdez, I called out, center mat. She moved forward without hesitation. I saw Talrex, Borand, and Mace exchange glances. They were hoping for this. Your opponents today will be, I paused, pretending to consult my data tablet. In truth, I wanted to see something, wanted to test a theory forming in my mind about these humans and their capacity for adaptation under pressure. Talrex, Borand, and Mace, 3 against 1. Begin on my command. The 3 Drenthians moved to surround her. They were being smart about it, forming a triangle pattern, cutting off escape routes. Standard pack tactics. Kira stood in the center, slowly rotating, keeping all 3 in her field of vision. Remember, I called out, this is a training exercise. Control and technique. Excessive force will result in immediate dismissal from my program. I was speaking to the Drenthians, not Kira. They knew it. She knew it. Everyone knew it. Begin. Talrex moved first, rushing from her left. Borand came from the right half a second later, coordinated assault. They had planned this. Mace held back, waiting to see which way she would dodge, ready to cut off her escape. Kira did not dodge. She charged directly at Talrex. The surprise gave her the advantage she needed. Talrex expected retreat, expected fear. Instead, she closed the distance before he could adjust, ducked under his reaching arms, and struck the inside of his knee with her foot. Not a kick, exactly, more like a precise stamp that buckled his leg and sent him stumbling. Borand was on her immediately, grabbing for her shoulders. She twisted, impossibly fast, and suddenly his own grip became the tool of his defeat. She used his momentum, his weight, his strength, pulling him forward and down while simultaneously moving backward. He crashed face first into the mat where she had been standing. 2 seconds, 2 opponents neutralized. Not defeated, but disrupted, their timing destroyed. Mace was smarter. He did not rush in. He circled, watching, analyzing. Good instincts. Talrex recovered, rage replacing strategy. He charged again, this time throwing a punch that violated every rule of the exercise. Kira slipped it by millimeters, and I saw her hand flash out, striking his extended elbow. The joint hyperextended with a sound like breaking wood. Talrex screamed, clutching his arm. Medical violation, I called out, but I did not stop the exercise. Talrex had struck first, again. These Drenthians needed to learn that actions have consequences. Borand was up now, more cautious. He and Mace approached together, trying to pin her between them. Kira kept moving, never letting them establish the position they wanted. She was always on an angle, always making them adjust, burning their energy while conserving her own. Mace feinted left. Kira responded, but it was a trap. Borand grabbed her from behind, his massive arms wrapping around her torso, lifting her off the ground. Finally, their size advantage was working. "Got you!" Borand growled in her ear. Kira stopped struggling, went completely still. Then her head snapped backward, the back of her skull connecting with Borand's face. I heard cartilage crunch. His grip loosened just slightly, and that was all she needed. She threw her legs up, using Borand's own body as leverage, and suddenly she was upside down, sliding out of his grip. Her feet hit the mat, and in the same motion she swept Borand's legs. All 180 kilograms of him crashed down, and she was already moving away before he finished falling. Mace stood alone now, breathing hard, reassessing. Around us, the other recruits had stopped their own exercises to watch. Even I was transfixed. "You are better than them," Mace said quietly, speaking directly to Kira. "I acknowledge this, but there are 3 of us, and eventually you will tire." Kira tilted her head slightly. "Then I need to finish this quickly." She moved, not toward Mace, but toward Talrex, who was still cradling his injured arm. Mace tried to intercept, but she was faster, changing direction mid-stride in a way that should not have been anatomically possible. She reached Talrex, grabbed his good arm, and used him as a shield when Mace tried to grab her. Talrex yelped in pain as his own friend accidentally struck him. Kira released him, rolled under Mace's next grab, and came up behind him. Her arm wrapped around his throat. Not crushing, not cutting off air, just controlling, threatening. Mace froze. "Yield," she said softly, not a request, a statement of fact. Mace tapped her arm twice, the universal signal of submission. Kira released him immediately and stepped back, returning to a tension stance. Borand was still on the ground, holding his broken nose. Talrex was clutching his hyperextended elbow. Mace was breathing hard, massaging his throat, staring at her with something like awe mixed with terror. The hall was absolutely silent. I walked to the center of the mat. Training exercise concluded. Medical teams will attend to the injured. I turned to address all the recruits. "You have witnessed something important today. Size is not strength, numbers are not victory. Skill, strategy, and absolute commitment to survival, these are what matter in combat." I looked at Kira, dismissed, "All of you." As the recruits filed out, I noticed several of them approaching Kira, speaking to her in hushed tones, asking questions, seeking knowledge. The Manthar heavy assault specialist, Gorthak, actually bowed to her, a sign of profound respect in his culture. But not everyone was impressed. I saw a cluster of Drenthians in the corner, speaking in low, angry voices. Krovik had arrived, his arm in a medical brace, his bone ridge bandaged. He was watching Kira with undisguised hatred. This was escalating beyond training, exercises beyond controlled environments. I needed to address it before someone got seriously hurt. Or killed. That evening I called Kira to my office. She arrived exactly on time, standing at attention before my desk. "At ease," I said. She relaxed slightly but remained alert, always alert. "You are making enemies, Recruit Valdez." "Yes, sir, I am aware." "Does this concern you?" She considered the question carefully. "In training, no. The rules protect us. Outside training." She paused. "I remain vigilant. Smart. Aware of the politics, the danger brewing beneath the surface." "Tell me honestly," I said, leaning forward. "Are all humans like you? This capable in personal combat?" She almost smiled. "No, sir. I am considered specialized. Most humans are average fighters at best, but we have a saying on Earth: the most dangerous human is not the strongest or the fastest. It is the one who refuses to quit." "And you refuse to quit?" "Always, sir. It is not in my nature." I nodded slowly. "I am going to tell you something, and you will not repeat it. Understood?" "Yes, sir. The Galactic Military Command is watching this academy closely right now. Watching you specifically. Humans are new to our alliance, and there are many species who question whether your people belong here. They think you are too primitive, Too violent, too unstable. Every action you take, every fight you win or lose, reflects on your entire species. Kira's expression did not change, but I saw something flash in her eyes. Understanding, the weight of representation. So when the Drenthians challenge you again, and they will, how you respond matters, not just for you, for every human who will follow you into this academy. I understand, sir. I will conduct myself appropriately. See that you do. Dismissed. She left and I sat in my office reviewing reports. The incident had generated significant attention. Command wanted explanations. The Drenthian ambassador had filed a formal complaint. Human Diplomatic Corps had responded with their own statement, defending Kira but also requesting a full investigation. Politics. I despised politics. 3 days passed without incident. The training continued. Kira excelled in every exercise, but she was careful now, pulling her strikes, showing restraint, demonstrating that her previous actions had been necessary responses to aggression, not displays of excessive violence. The other recruits began seeking her instruction. She taught them techniques from Earth, strange movements with names like hip throw, arm bar, triangle choke, rear naked strangle. The terminology was bizarre, but the effectiveness was undeniable. Even I asked her to demonstrate some techniques. In my 217 cycles, I had never seen anything quite like the human fighting systems. They were elegant, efficient, and absolutely brutal when applied with full intent. We have studied violence for thousands of years, she explained during one's demonstration. Not because we love it, but because we needed to survive it. We turned it into science, into art, into philosophy. Every culture on Earth developed their own methods. We shared them, tested them, refined them. What you see now is the result of millennia of constant improvement. Terrifying and fascinating. On the 4th day, Krovik returned to full training status. His arm had healed. His bone ridge was repaired. His pride, however, remained shattered. I should have removed him from the program, should have recognized that he was too unstable, too obsessed with revenge, but he was politically connected, and I had already received 3 messages from his father demanding that his son be allowed to continue. Politics, again. The final exercise of the cycle was combat simulation. Full gear, stun weapons, team scenarios. Red team versus blue team. Capture the objective. Standard military training. I assigned Kira to blue team, Krovik to red team, along with several other Drenthians. The simulation arena was a maze of corridors, rooms, and obstacles. Perfect environment for ambushes. Perfect place for accidents. I watched from the control room as both teams prepared, checked their gear, reviewed their strategies. Blue team elected Kira as their tactical leader. Interesting choice, considering she was the newest recruit, but they trusted her judgment, her instincts. Red team was being led by Krovik. I did not like the expression on his face. Too eager, too focused on one specific opponent. Begin simulation, I announced. Both teams moved into the arena. Blue team advanced cautiously, Kira directing them with hand signals, maintaining formation, clearing corners properly. Professional, disciplined. Red team split into 2 groups. One moved toward the objective. The other, led by Krovik, moved toward blue team's position. Hunting. The first contact happened in Corridor 7. Priel, from blue team, spotted red team flankers and called out a warning. Weapons fire filled the corridor. Stun bolts, but they still hurt. 2 red team members went down. Blue team pushed forward, seizing the advantage. Then Krovik appeared behind them. Ambush. He had used the distraction to circle around, and now he had a clear shot at blue team's rear. Specifically, at Kira. She sensed it somehow. Combat instinct, situational awareness, or perhaps just experience recognizing when death is approaching from behind. She dove sideways as Krovik fired. The stun bolt missed by centimeters, striking the wall and leaving a scorch mark. "Contact rear!" Kira shouted, rolling to cover. Her team responded instantly, turning to meet the new threat. But Krovik was already moving, pressing the attack with reckless aggression that violated standard tactics. He wanted Kira, only her. The objective did not matter anymore. This had become personal. They exchanged fire. Stun bolts crossing the corridor in brilliant blue streaks. Kira was pinned, unable to advance or retreat. Her team was scattered, dealing with other red team members. She was isolated, exactly what Krovik wanted. His weapon clicked empty. Instead of reloading, he charged, dropped the stun rifle and rushed at her with nothing but his massive hands and his rage. Kira stood her ground, let him come, waited until the last possible moment, then moved. She sidestepped his charge, struck his knee as he passed, and sent him sprawling. But Krovik had learned. He caught himself, spun, and grabbed her leg before she could create distance. He yanked hard, pulling her off balance. They hit the ground together. Krovik was on top, using his weight advantage, throwing punches that would have shattered bone if they connected. Kira blocked, deflected, absorbed the impacts on her arms and shoulders, taking damage but protecting vital areas. This was not training anymore. This was real. I was already running from the control room, but I was too far away. The arena was huge. I would never reach them in time. Krovik's hands found her throat, squeezed. His face was twisted with rage, with hatred, with the need to prove he was superior, to erase his humiliation the only way he knew how, by killing her. Kira's face started turning red. Her hands grabbed his wrists, trying to break the grip, but he was too strong, too heavy, too determined. For 3 seconds, I thought I was going to watch a recruit die in my training program. Then Kira stopped fighting his hands. Instead, she struck upward with the heel of her palm, hitting Krovik's chin. His head snapped back. The grip on her throat loosened just slightly. She struck again. And again. Rapid, precise blows to his face, his throat, his temples, not trying to overpower him, just causing pain, creating opportunities, forcing him to react. Krovik released her throat to protect his face. Fatal mistake. Kira's legs came up, wrapping around his arm and neck in that same terrible position she had used during their first encounter. Triangle choke, she had called it. Her favorite technique. She locked it in tight. Krovik struggled, tried to lift her, tried to slam her down, tried to break free. But the angle was perfect. The pressure was precise. The outcome was inevitable. His struggles weakened. His face turned purple. His eyes started to roll back. "Release him!" I shouted, finally reaching them. "Kira, release him now!" She held on for 1 more second, making a point, proving something. Then she opened her legs and pushed him away. Krovik collapsed, gasping unconscious. Medical teams rushed in with emergency equipment. His pulse was weak but steady. He would survive. Kira sat up slowly, rubbing her throat. There would be bruises, evidence of attempted murder during a training exercise. I looked at her. She looked back at me. Neither of us spoke, but everything was communicated in that glance. This could not continue, would not continue. Within the hour, Krovik was removed from the academy. Not expelled because politics, but transferred to a different program far from Station Helix 9. His father protested. The Drenthian ambassador filed another complaint, but command had witnessed the incident through arena cameras. They had seen attempted murder. Even politics has limits. Kira completed the training cycle with highest honors. She earned respect from every species in the program, not through violence, but through skill, discipline, and the absolute refusal to quit even when outmatched, outnumbered, and fighting for her life. On her final day, I called her to my office one last time. "You survived," I said simply. "Yes, sir. More than survived. You changed perspectives, made people reconsider their assumptions about humans." She nodded but said nothing. "Tell me, Recruit Valdez, now that you have completed academy training, what comes next for you?" She smiled then, a real smile, warm and genuine. "I return to Earth, sir, to train the next generation. Because more humans are coming. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Eventually. And they will all need to learn how to survive in this galaxy, just as I did." I felt that same concern from weeks ago, but this time it was mixed with something else. Anticipation, perhaps, or inevitability. The galaxy is not ready for more humans, I said. No, sir, she agreed. But ready or not, we are here now, and we do not quit. She saluted. I returned it. She left my office, left the station, left my life. But her impact remained. The human who walked into my training hall looking fragile and harmless had departed as a legend. The recruits spoke about her in whispered tones. The story spread throughout the military. Embellished, exaggerated, but fundamentally true. One human, 3 meters tall opponent, 4.3 seconds. She threw him down and ended it without mercy. And somewhere across the galaxy, on that small blue planet in the outer rim, thousands more humans were preparing for their own journey into the stars. Training, learning, adapting. Turning their violent history into tactical advantage. Bringing their refusal to quit into every battle, every challenge, every impossible situation. The galaxy was indeed not ready. But humans had never cared much about being invited to the fight. They simply showed up and won.